Welcome to this explainer. So imagine for a second that you have absolute power, untold wealth, and a life totally shielded from every conceivable hardship. Pretty great, right? But then, imagine just walking away from all of it to face the brutal realities of human suffering. Today we're exploring a fascinating tale of two paths. We're going to look at the simultaneous emergence of Buddhism and Jainism in ancient India, and dive into how two incredibly privileged princes sparked a revolution in spiritual thought that literally still shapes our world today.
Okay, let's dive into this agenda. We've got 1. The era of the Mahajanapadas, 2. Buddha's journey to enlightenment, 3. The core teachings of Buddhism, 4. Mahavira and the Jain path, and 5. Preserving the sacred traditions.
Section 1. Era of the Mahajanapadas. To really get why these two profound philosophies emerged when they did, we have to look at the world they were born into. We're talking about the 6th and 5th centuries BCE in northern India. And this wasn't some quiet, contemplative time. No way. Society was changing at absolute breakneck speed. People were moving from small, kinship-based tribal settlements to larger janapadas with distinct cultures. Eventually, these consolidated into 16 massive, highly organized states known as the Mahajanapadas, which would ultimately pave the way for giant empires. The ground was literally shifting beneath people's feet.
And among those 16 states, Magadha rose to absolute dominance. The secret? Iron. Abundant iron ore deposits allowed Magadha to forge far superior weapons and agricultural tools, which gave them a massive, brutal edge over their rivals. So, the crucial takeaway here is that this era was marked by a really bloody, chaotic consolidation of power. The old tribal equalities were dying out, and they were being replaced by strict hierarchies and war. It created a society that was desperately seeking new spiritual answers, a way out of the suffering.
Section 2. Buddha's journey to enlightenment.
That desperate spiritual call we just talked about, it was answered by Siddhartha Gautama. Born a prince to the chief of the Sakya tribe in 563 BCE, Siddhartha was completely shielded from the harsh realities of this era. But, as you'll see, palace walls can't keep out the truth of human existence forever. After a youth of extreme luxury, a profound realization hit him. At 29, he left it all behind. By 35, after intense study, and realizing that extreme physical self-denial wasn't actually the answer, he found the middle path and achieved enlightenment meditating in Gaya. For the next 45 years, he taught these truths, passing away at age 80 in what's known as his Mahaparinirvana.
Now, this moment right here, it's known as the Mahabhinishramana, the Great Going Forth. At just 29 years old, deeply troubled by the suffering he finally witnessed outside his royal bubble, Siddhartha left his palace in the dead of night with his charioteer Channa. He made the conscious choice to confront the reality of human suffering head-on. He literally traded a crown for a begging bowl.
Section 3. Core teachings of Buddhism.
So after years of searching, that prince became the Buddha, the enlightened one. And from his enlightenment came a highly structured, incredibly practical path for others. He established the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. But what exactly was he teaching? Well, it basically all boils down to the 4 noble truths. You can actually think of this like a medical diagnosis for the human condition. First, the symptom. Life involves suffering and dissatisfaction, what he called dukkham. Second, the cause. This suffering comes from our relentless desires. Third, the prognosis. It's entirely possible to end this suffering by removing those attachments. And fourth, the prescription, a very specific path to achieve that cure.
And that prescription, that is the Eightfold Path. Now, this isn't just ancient mysticism. It's a highly relatable, surprisingly modern compass for mental well-being. It asks us to cultivate right understanding, thought, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. It's a true middle path that completely avoids the extremes of totally indulging yourself or, on the flip side, torturing yourself. It's all about steady, ethical, and mental development.
The ultimate goal of all this effort is nirvana. And it's super important to clarify what nirvana actually is because a lot of people get this wrong. It is not a physical place like a heaven you go to after you die. The word literally translates to blowing out, like extinguishing the flames of a candle. It's a state of being where the flames of desire, hatred, and delusion are completely blown out, bringing total, absolute freedom from suffering.
But to actually get there, you've got to practice ahimsa. We usually translate this as nonviolence, but it's so much deeper than just, not hitting someone. It is a strict commitment to non-harm that extends to your speech, your thoughts, and your actions toward all living beings. It's an ancient rule for sure, but think about how incredibly powerful it is as a modern tool for extreme empathy today.
And kind of holding all of this together is the law of karma. Karma literally means action. It's the universal law of cause and effect. It means our intentional actions are never isolated. They create ripple effects that actively shape our future experiences. It operates across lifetimes to explain the very circumstances we find ourselves born into.
So Buddhism is incredibly comprehensive. But as we look back at the chaos of the Mahajanapadas, a pretty fascinating question pops up. Was Buddhism the only path to emerge during this time of political upheaval? The answer is no. At the exact same time, another noble seeker was out there searching for the ultimate truth, and he developed a philosophy that would also endure for thousands of years.
Section 4. Mahavira and the Jain Path.
This brings us to Vardhamana, who would become known as Mahavir, which means the great hero. Born slightly before the Buddha in 540 BC, he too came from incredible privilege, born into a prominent warrior clan. And remarkably, just like Siddhartha, he walked away from his comfortable life at age 30. He embarked on 12 years of intense, grueling physical asceticism and meditation, and that intense discipline definitely paid off. He attained Kavala Jnana, perfect knowledge. You might notice a familiar pattern here with the rule of 3. Just as Buddhism has its 3 jewels, Mahavir established the 3 Ratnas, or jewels of Jainism: right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct.
To ensure that right conduct, Mahavira championed the 5 great vows. Now, the first 4, non-violence, truthfulness, non-possession, and non-stealing, were actually passed down from an earlier teacher, but Mahavira added the crucial 5th vow, brahmacharya, or extreme self-restraint. This is a path of intense self-discipline, rejecting a creator God, in favor of the belief that absolutely every soul can achieve liberation through its own rigorous effort and a profound universal brotherhood with all living things.
Section 5. Preserving the Sacred Traditions.
So we have 2 profound revolutionary teachers who totally shifted the paradigm of ancient India. But what happens when the founders pass away? Both Buddha and Mahavira amassed massive followings. But remember, their teachings were entirely oral. To survive the centuries, these philosophies had to be formalized. For the Buddhists, this led to holding multiple councils to agree on doctrine. By the 4th council, a formal division occurred, creating the 2 major schools we see today: Hinayana, focusing on individual effort, and Mahayana, which expanded the focus to universal salvation and compassion.
Finally, we literally get to see the physical preservation of all this wisdom. The Buddhist Tripitaka, the 3 baskets, were famously written down on palm leaves in Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, the Jain Siddhanta, or Agamas, codified their teachings. And crucially, both of these traditions wrote not in the elite Sanskrit of the priests, but in common everyday languages like Pali and Ardha Magadhi. This ensured that the path to liberation belonged to the people, not just the privileged few.
We started this whole explainer with a world in total chaos, the bloody rise of the Mahajanapadas. And we saw how 2 princes walked away from absolute power to conquer the mind instead. These aren't just dry, historical doctrines. Whether it's the modern application of the Eightfold Path for mental clarity or the extreme empathy of ahimsa, these are living, breathing frameworks. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. How do the choices made by 2 ancient seekers continue to shape your own pursuit of peace and mindfulness in today's incredibly chaotic world?